Round here, them guns get the last word.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today I have two news articles here, and this comes from Michael Murray, where he's talking about Tekken 8. Usually we're talking about Harada talking about Tekken 8, but Harada's not here. Michael Murray, the producer of Tekken. A lot of people mistake this guy for being the translator for Harada, but as you can see, his title is producer. Now, in both of these news articles here, he talks a lot about Kunimitsu, but that's not really why I want to cover this, right? Kunimitsu, the character will be out. There's a lot of gameplay. You can form your own opinions there. Before we start this video, please be sure to subscribe. We're very close to 40,000 subscribers. Follow me on Twitch as well. I do streams on there a lot. What's interesting about this is he also talked about DLC characters, how they are picked, why they are picked, and he also name dropped a couple of characters like Lei Wulong. I know a lot of people are interested in him, so I'm just going to start reading because there's a couple of things I want to get to. The first question says, why Kunimitsu and why now? This is what the interviewer is asking. It says, for anyone wondering how character earns their spot on the season pass, Murray broke it down plainly. It's not a single deciding factor, but a mix of several things that the team weighs together. And the quote says, there are several factors that goes into it. The quote says, is there a playstyle or martial art that we haven't represented yet in the current cast? We also look at play data to see how popular a character is that maybe hasn't released yet. And not just how popular they are, but what kind of group are they popular with? This is talking about trying to bring in different demographics. This is why when they create a new character, it comes from a totally untapped region of the world. Like, for example, with Mami Zo, she comes from Madagascar, and they were very specific to say that there's never been a fighting game character that was done in that region, which is why that region loved it so much, and it broke news headlines there, right? But then also that they do create characters in like Poland, you know, Saudi Arabia, these places that have big audiences and big hearts for Tekken. So you can see that the Tekken developers is kind of always scouring new territory to cover with Tekken characters. Skipping past all of the stuff about Kunimitsu, down at the bottom of the interview, it says, revealing the full season at once. Season 3 also marked the first time Bandai Namco revealed all the characters in the past at the same time, rather than spacing them out one by one. Murray reflected honestly on the pros and cons of that decision. In quotes, it says, the more vocal people online have shown very positive reactions to being able to see all the characters at once, because they have a better idea if they want to buy the pass or individual characters. This is the same reason why I also talk about leaked DLC rosters or base rosters, is because when a game is charging you pre-orders and you don't know the full roster, if something leaks, it's just more information for the player to be able to decide. So the fact that that's the same reason why they revealed all the characters at the same time, there's more reading here, but just the fact that that's the first thing he mentions, it shows why like fighting games shouldn't necessarily open pre-orders without showing the full roster. But that's a side point. It goes on to say, but also he acknowledged something is lost in that approach. In quotes, it says, one reason we didn't do that initially is we always saw the fan base just having a lot of fun trying to figure out what the characters were. We didn't want to take that away from them. Speculation threads, the guessing games on Reddit, the discourse over whether it would be Wang Jinrei or Ancient Ogre or someone else, entirely all the energy becomes different kind of engagement when the answer is already on the table. In quotes, this is from Michael Murray. Also, it depends on where you're showing it. If you're showing it at Combo Breaker or Evo, people are going to explode. Now, of course, Moonsault Slayer is a person who always is theorizing and speculating on what's come next. That's like half of the content. Me personally, I would sacrifice that. If people can know who's there and not waste money, like, oh, I'm gonna buy this season pass because Miguel's gonna be there and he's not there for 3 years, I would definitely sacrifice that part of it. If the season pass roster wasn't so disappointing, then players would be more so accepting and the idea of not knowing. I mean, think about for Street Fighter, how they're still waiting for fan favorites like Balrog and Vega. It's crazy how long these fighting games are delaying the icons into the lifespan, and it gets and you understand why players are sick of waiting, right? Now here's where we pop over to the IGN news article, which has a little bit more of the quote here. And this is where Lee's name is mentioned. It says, when it comes to the selection though, Murray did elaborate on how DLCs are being selected. It's been well documented that the Tekken team takes both gameplay and popularity into account when it comes to choosing DLC lineup, especially if there's something new they can add. However, Michael Murray stressed the popularity is much more than, and this is a quote, If this post get 100 upvotes, they'll add Dr. Boskanovich in the Tekken. Now, the fact that they name dropped Boskanovich here probably means that he will never show up to Tekken. That's usually what happens. Whenever a developer names drops a character like this, it means they're completely out of the discussion for showing up. So Boskanovich enjoyers, RIP. Also, Boskanovich is still alive and well. He plays a big role in the story behind the scenes. He's a person who develops a lot of the technology you see Jin using to fight back against Kazuya. So that's another reason why Michael Murray picks his name, because he is relevant and active in Tekken 8. The quote goes on to say, when I mean popular, there's various popularities, right? Not just the different novice, beginner, expert, etc., but also one character might be very popular against people who draw fan art, or one character a lot of people cosplay as. And this is something that's very important to highlight, because Eliza was said by Harada to be the most cosplayed character of Tekken 7, but we know that her usage data was the lowest of the whole roster. So that's a duality there of characters. You may see them all the time on your timeline, but it doesn't necessarily mean people are playing that character online. The quote goes on to say, but we really want people to also actually pick up the character. So Lei, for example, Lei Wulong is a very popular staple of the Tekken franchise, and everyone is like, we need Lei to make it a proper Tekken. And that's true, right? Staple of the franchise, doesn't feel like Tekken without him. But also pay attention to what he said there. You want people to actually play the character. If you're just on Twitter drawing fan art and fanfic and cosplaying, yes, you're still interacting with Tekken, but the people who want their character and will actually spend hours engaging with the game, buying monetization, buying microtransactions, buying DLC. With that quote, he's kind of saying, like, we choose the people who's going to play the game over people who will just draw art for the game. But it goes on to say, but did people actually play Lei when he was in the game? Question mark. He answers that question and says, not so much. So please, I'm not saying Lee is never going to be in Tekken 8. That's not the point. He says it's not the point. It's one thing that we do have to consider is, of course, people will be happy when they're in the game. A lot of people don't play Armor King, but when he is in the game or added to the game, they are very happy about that. Now, this last part here was kind of interesting because in Tekken 7 and in Tekken 8, Armor King's popularity was really high. And he's probably more so referring to the older versions of Tekken, because before Tekken 7 and before Tekken 8, even pro players attest to this, that Armor King was not popular. But still, with Tekken 7, before he touched the game, people wanted him to return. And with the overhaul of his design and the, game had changing a lot over that decade, he found popularity. And that's probably why they felt more excited or willing to bring back characters like Kunimitsu and Roger, who in the past is documented to not have a popular fan base, right? So Armor King could be the domino that triggered all of this, really, legacy characters, like truly legacy characters returning. To continue reading the quote, Michael Murray throws in another but. He says, but there is still a lot of people who actually play Armor King. So because it takes so much resources to add a new character to the game, especially the new design elements to their gameplay, we really prefer the character has an audience of the players that actually use the character when they're added. They're saying that they're picking characters based on popularity and who's going to be played. And if the character's not going to be played, they're not going to be added. And Lei Wulong, even though he's loved a lot, from this description here, it sounds like he's not going to be played. But then also, when you talk about Kunimitsu, we know that her popularity started off kind of low in Tekken 7, but as time went on, she started to skyrocket. And even in this news article that I just talked about a second ago, they talked about that very briefly. Like, they were talking about how the characters became more popular, and they were kind of contributing some of that to Arslan, how he's been doing very well in tournaments. And, whatever character is being shown in tournaments, that player popularity or usage skyrockets, right? Lily was picked up by Arslan, and she became the most played female character for that week. Soon as Arslan dropped her, she fell off. Kazuya won 2 tournaments at the start of Tekken 8, and his popularity went up hugely, and it has not dropped. The excitement around that character is lively. You could feel the impact of the tournaments. Now, here's a part that I also want to read. It says, in the interest of these paragraphs not being screenshotted with some sort of tacky headline like Lei is deconfirmed for Tekken 8, Michael Murray was kind enough to say that it's anyone's guess if humanity would be subjective to Lei's stance pressure with a dash of heat. The quote here says, my mind is not made up on Lei. Again, on the record. So even though he said the example that he said about Lei, and even though I said that it doesn't seem like he's going to return, Michael Murray is not ruling it out, because sometimes you do have to say the character's name as an example of what you're talking about. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it won't happen. And we've seen this happen from time to time, again, where the developers say something and then, they then do the opposite. Hey, Archie's completely dead. Oh, give us $5,